Welcome back to Intune In. Today's video will be about installing the new Windows Intune beta client software down onto your local PC. Make sure that before you do this that you have gone through and uninstalled all of the existing Windows Intune client software or other client management solutions if you already do have those in place. So that will just minimize the chances of anything going wrong during the install. So the first thing we need to do is type in to the portal, or in this case the administration console. I need to get the terminology correct. And this, like the previous version of Windows Intune, is based on Silverlight, where we can go through and get an idea of what's here just by exploring the user interface quite simply. But in this case, the first thing I really want to do here is do the download and deployment of the client software. And we have a link directly to that on the first page of the console, so it makes it very easy for us to come in and find that software. We can take a look at what the client software requirements are, and like previous versions of Windows Intune, you do find that Windows XP Professional SP3 or higher, or the business versions of Windows Vista or Windows 7 are also applicable. The other requirements in terms of disk space, internet connectivity, etc. aren't really that drastic. It's what you would have expected with the previous version. So let's go back to the client download and installation. And in this case, I'll save it locally to my desktop. Now we can see that it's downloading. And it will just take a short while for this to download. Of course, this will vary depending on the speed of your internet connection. Those of you with congested networks will see this happening a lot slower than this case. But what you'd normally do is just download it once, and then you can redistribute this to all of the clients on your network. So now that this is installed, if we go through and take a look at that, you'll see that like the previous versions of Windows Intune, we have the setup file as well as the account cert file, which are both required in order for the installation to proceed. And like other versions of Intune that have been released by Microsoft, you need to make sure that you are online as you are doing the installation, as a big part of the install is actually pulling down new files from the web. So now all I do is run this, and we can let Windows Intune start doing the installation. So once again, this process can take a while depending on things such as your internet speed, I guess how bandwidth limited you are in terms of if it's a lot of users using the same connection, you may find it's slower. But usually it's better just to install this from a network share or deploy it via group policy, for example. There are a number of different ways that you can deploy this in a more automated fashion rather than manually downloading and installing on each client machine. Now, as we go through, it goes through and it will do some quick checks in terms of what the capabilities of your system are to make sure that you do meet the minimum requirements. It also does things such as checks the operating system that you are attempting to install it on to make sure that it is one of the supported Windows client OSs. So some of the things that people always ask about is whether or not it supports servers, and the answer to this is no. And the other question that comes up at the moment is around Windows 8 support. And officially, because Windows 8 is still in early beta, it's not a platform that is officially supported. But obviously, as it gets closer to launch and then launch, we should see that the Intune team is hopefully going to support that straight out of the gate for us. So the installation is just proceeding here, and we'll let that run along, and I won't go through and do a full commentary during the whole process. What I'll do is I'll come back at key points just to point out some of the key things that are happening. Now that we've allowed this some time to run, just a few things to take a look at quickly is first of all jumping in and taking a look at Windows Intune Endpoint Protection. For those of you who are familiar with Microsoft Security Essentials or their forefront endpoint protection products, you'll see that we do have a consistent user interface across all three products, and we also have the same underlying technologies in terms of the antivirus and anti-malware engines across all three as well. So it means that it's a lot simpler to be able to jump from machine to machine. People who may have it just running in a home environment, large organizations that are using the forefront capabilities, we've got a solid consistent experience across all the different segments that we can now get these Microsoft technologies into. And the final thing that I'll just show you quickly here is if we go into the Windows Intune company portal, It asks if we're the primary user of the computer, and in this case we can go through and say that we want to link this PC to me as a user. So what it's done now is it's gone through, it's associated my machine with my account, so it's quite easy for me to now go through and start working on this device, and over time as I start populating more applications in, or in this case some applications in, we'll have the ability to now really getting into the whole concept of a self-service portal where I can start adding in additional applications very simply, rather than it being something that is dictated by the administrator. So this means that I may be in a situation where I'm in a high bandwidth environment, so all of a sudden I may decide that I want to check to see what updates are available, what new bits of software our organization is now licensed for, and I can install it from here. Or alternatively, if I'm working on my 3G connection and I know that the data charges are going to be high, I'm really not going to be too tempted to go through and do something like an Office 365 full client installation, for example, that may take a gig or so of my allowance for the month. So it really gives you a bit more control as a user as to when some of these major software applications get installed down onto your system. So that's really just a very quick look at the client setup, as well as now the ability to go through and sign into the portal as a user so that we can associate our PC as the first step and then start choosing the appropriate applications. In further videos we'll go into the adding applications and then installing them in a lot more detail, so stay tuned and we'll be back with those videos shortly. Thank you.